everyone. Today I'll be delivering a lecture on post-disaster effects and remedial measures. Every year, millions of people are affected by both the human caused and natural disasters. Disasters may be explosions, earthquakes, floods, or fires, etc. In a disaster, people face danger of death or physical injury. They may also lose home, possessions, and community. Such stressors place the people at risk for emotional and physical health problems. So, this lecture discusses the effects of disasters and its remedial measures, and also the concept of livelihood and its relevance to the approach of reconstruction. First, we will see the post disaster effects. Natural disasters increasing its frequency due to climate change, and these events bring a lot of issues including humanitarian, public health, environmental, and infrastructure problems. Humanitarian crisis that created by the natural disasters causes a large migrant creates a large migrant populations. They are called climate refugees or environmental migrants. These people can be forced out of their homes by an abrupt natural disaster. The area where they formerly lived is no longer habitable for one reason or another. Or the standard of living has dropped so drastically and uncertain their future, and they start to migrate. So this is one of the effect of this disaster. And public health issues. Health issues are one of the most pressing problems after any natural disaster. It is often the case that the facility for water and toilet hygiene are damaged, and safe drinking water and the food hygiene, all these things rapidly deteriorate, and it affect the health of the people. And psychological effect is the after any natural disaster event, survivors can experience mental health consequences including post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. And disasters can cause traumatic flashbacks where the individuals recalls the event, severe anxiety, withdrawal, depression, and increases fears of loss and death, which can interfere their normal daily life. The person does not have a normal ability to cope with this trauma. And children are especially vulnerable to post-disaster traumatic stress. Environmental problems from tsunamis to wildfires can cause wide-ranging and long-term consequences for ecosystems. They release pollution and waste or simply demolishing the habitats. The infrastructural damage is one of the most immediate and economical devastating concerns with natural disasters. It's a damage to both public and private infrastructures. Disaster affects communities in multiple ways. They represent a public health hazard for various reasons, can cause an unexpected number of deaths and wounded or sick people that exceed the local resources capacity to respond and require an external aid. Disasters can destroy health infrastructure, not only affecting the immediate response but also disrupting preventive activities, leading to a long-term consequences with increasing morbidity and mortality. Disasters can have adverse effects on the environment that will increase the risk of infectious, transmissible diseases and environmental hazards. This will impact morbidity, premature death, and future quality of life. Disasters can affect psychological and social behavior of the community. It can cause shortages of food, with severe nutritional consequences. It can cause large movements of population, both spontaneous or organized, to areas where health services might not be able to handle the excessive requirement. These all are the post-disaster effect on communities. We will see the remedial measures or the essential emergency relief measures. As to a rapid assessment of the emergency situation and affected population. An assessment should accurately define the needs so that limited resources will be efficiently used and to maximize life saving and other vital goals. In the immediate aftermath of a disaster, the initial response will primarily come from local resources. So, communities must be prepared to do a local assessment of disaster impact. Healthcare professionals should be prepared to assess the health issues in their community and understand the mechanism of sharing that information with a higher community and understand the mechanism sharing higher levels of authorities in order to contribute to regional or national assessment and provide adequate shelter and clothing. Exposure to a worst climatic conditions in a disaster situation can increase the death rate. So, immediately find short term shelters for all homeless individuals, particularly focusing on vulnerable populations. And provide adequate nutrition. Large scale bulk food requirements are typically calculated based on a minimum of 2100 calorie per person per day. So community must plan to distribute food equitably and include the vulnerable groups. Provide elementary sanitation and clean water. The estimated minimum requirement for drinking water is 3 to 5 liter per person per day of clean water, but they may 15 to 20 liters are recommended for all the needs including washing and cooking. So re-establish supplies of clean water and effective sanitation and waste disposal services should do as soon as possible. So in an emergency there should be at least one latrine per 20 individuals. The setup diarrhea control program. An increase in diarrhea disease is a predictable outcome of a disaster because the infrastructure and healthcare services disrupted due to the disaster. So rapidly implement community-based education on appropriate household sanitation measures, diarrhea prevention and household case management, particularly for young children with diarrhea. So next is the immune against measles and provide vitamin A supplements. Then another important remedial measures and set up disease surveillance and health information system. Effective health information and disease surveillance system are necessary to monitor effectiveness of the health interventions and reassign the priorities and organize the human resources. The initial shock of an event can make it difficult for a disaster affected population to effectively respond in a quick and organized fashion. Having a predefined emergency plan with clearly identified leaders can help the local community to cope until more external resources arrive and coordinate the activities. In a large scale disaster, there will be many national and international agencies attempting to assess, develop plans, and establish priorities for funding at national and regional levels. Most effective relief efforts have resulted from effective collaboration between many agencies, so each bringing their own expertise and experience. However, all these agencies will ultimately depend on quality assessments from the affected communities to make appropriate decisions and determine the ability of the communities to implement the plans and projects. They will help diminishing the suffering and restore the baseline situation in the communities. We will see the livelihood and the creation of job opportunities after a disaster. Livelihood uh, comprises the capabilities, assets, and activities required for a meaning of living. So there are six livelihoods capitals or the building blocks of livelihoods that are needed for the well-being of people. That is financial or income, social, human, natural, political, and physical. In all the cases, uh, there is both crisis and non-crisis situations. So jobs and livelihood is critical in contributing to multi-dimensional poverty reduction, ending hunger, and reducing inequality early on in crisis and post-crisis settings. So livelihood and job creation have long been a critical issue in disaster response and recovery. Livelihood recovery by providing long-term opportunities is a very important after a disaster. The international humanitarian assistance has typically used two tools to promote livelihood recovery after disaster by cash transfer and public works programs, that is cash for works. Cash transfers are typically used to provide short-term assistance to the most vulnerable affected people. Cash for work, that or CFW, that programs have been common tool for humanitarian assistance. These programs provide cash for affected people in return for their work on various recovery projects such as debris removal and the repair or reconstruction of damaged infrastructure. So job opportunities for construction work will complete within few years. So government support for creating regular job is essential in devastated area, such as arranging jobs, building factories, rehabilitating facilities of irrigation and fishery harbors, and resolving the double debts. The public works employment schemes are used to engage communities in large scale public works activities such as the construction of roads, schools, and public offices. Another thing is matching workers with jobs. The process of rebuilding, particularly after a large scale disaster, can create a wealth of employment opportunities. Yet governments, private sector, and uh, international actors, those struggle to find qualified individuals to meet their human resource needs. Quite often, the problem is not a lack of appropriately skilled individuals, but rather the challenge of identifying them and linking them to the appropriate employment opportunities. And by providing insurance, like SEVA, the Self-Employed Women's Association, has taken on an innovative approach to providing insurance to some of the most vulnerable members of disaster affected communities in India following Gujarat earthquake of 2001. So all these will provide the livelihood or provide the long term job opportunities. Disasters negatively affecting humanitarian, public health, environmental, and infrastructural areas of a community. So, the International Recovery Plan platform, that is IRP, and United Nations Development Programs UNDP India have developed some guide nodes on recovery on 9 sectors, namely shelter, infrastructure, gender, livelihood, environment, governance, climate change, health and psychosocial support. So creation of livelihood option as a significant vulnerability reduction approach could be used in the context of development in general and disaster prevention and management in particular. So the coordination of different sectors and agency is crucial to this improvement of livelihood, and UNDP has been playing an important role in creation of livelihood options. These are the references. Thank you for listening.